On our broadcast tonight, breaking news. The Florida pastor who vowed to burn the Quran on 9/11 backs down after a day of intense pressure from Washington and around the world. And is there a New York connection here? Also tonight, game day here in New Orleans, where it's not just a football team. To many here, they really are the saints who helped them get back up. Plus, good neighbors making a difference in difficult times. Nightly news begins now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
And good evening from the banks of the Mississippi River. We are back here in New Orleans tonight. We'll have a word about why a bit later on in the broadcast. But first, we must begin tonight with some fast-moving events regarding the pastor from Florida who was threatening to burn the Holy Quran on Saturday to coincide with the 9th anniversary of 9/11. Well, tonight, it apparently took a phone call from the Secretary of Defense to make the pastor back down. He said late today he realizes now this is not the time to burn a Quran. And while initially this was reported to be part of a deal that would also include moving the location of that controversial planned Islamic community center near Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan in New York, well, that part of this is being denied tonight. We'll sort this all out. We have it covered beginning in Florida, where the announcement was made this afternoon. We want to begin with NBC's Kerry Sanders, who's been covering this story in Gainesville, Florida. Kerry, what can you tell us?
Well, good evening, Brian. Yes, NBC News has confirmed that Secretary of Defense Robert Gates late this afternoon phoned the pastor, Pastor Jones. Then a short time later, Pastor Jones came out here with all the world's eyes looking at this field in rural Florida. They heard the pastor announce that he no longer plans to build a bonfire with more than 200 Qurans. Pastor Terry Jones says he no longer plans to burn the Quran.
We have been in very much thought and prayer over this whole period. A lot of times we were asked, what would it take to call this thing off? We have thought it over many times.
The pastor now says burning the Quran was directly linked to plans to build an Islamic cultural center and mosque in Lower Manhattan near Ground Zero.
If they were willing to either cancel the mosque at the Ground Zero location, or if they were willing to move that location, if they were willing to move it away from that location, we would consider that a sign from God.
Flanked by an imam from Central Florida, Jones claims Imam Faisal Abdul-Rauf in New York has agreed the two sides should accommodate each other.
The imam has agreed to move the mosque. We have agreed to cancel our event on Saturday.
Imam Muhammad Musri, who has been negotiating an end to this for days, was less definitive.
I have made this morning contact with the office of Imam Faisal Abdul-Rauf and got a commitment to fly up to New York and meet with him in the company of Pastor Jones to discuss and come to a decision on relocating the mosque in New York. We are committed to dissolving the situation here and there.
While the owner of the building in New York tells NBC News there are no plans to move the proposed Islamic center, Pastor Jones says he has no reason to doubt what he's been told by the Florida imam who he sat with today.
He told me 3 times that the imam in New York said he would move the mosque. That is what he told me 3 times. I have witnesses. I only have this man's word that supposedly only has the imam's word, but that should be good enough. That's good enough for me.
A representative for the Imam Rauf, who is in New York, says that the imam there never spoke to Pastor Jones today and would not, because today is the last day of the holy month of Ramadan. Meantime, Pastor Jones says he plans to fly to New York on Saturday. He tells us he doesn't know who he's meeting with. He doesn't know what time he's going to meet or where he's going to meet. And when I asked him in a late afternoon press conference here today whether he felt he had been hoodwinked or tricked, he says, tricked and lied to if it turns out he is not meeting and if that mosque and cultural center near Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan is not moved. Brian?
Kerry, forgive me for saying that this all sounds a little shaky and like it could fall apart. Is that your impression?
Yes, although I would say that based on what the pastor has said here, he will not be here on Saturday, and so the planned burning that he was in charge of is not going to take place. So if there's a semantical difference that these different sides are unable to come to an agreement on what's actually happening in New York, the one thing that does appear pretty clear here is that there will not be this event here with the piling up of more than 200 Qurans and setting them ablaze.
Oh, you're right, Kerry. That is the central event here we're talking about, after all. Kerry Sanders in Gainesville, who's been covering the story. Story really with three prongs: the Florida angle, official Washington and around the world, and Lower Manhattan. Let's get to the other two by bringing in first Andrea Mitchell from our Washington bureau. Andrea, there's nothing like this. You've been around Washington a long time. This has now involved a four-star general, the Secretary of Defense, and after all, let's not forget, a preacher who, depending on estimates, has a flock in Florida of between 24 and perhaps 50 members, attracting all this attention because tensions being what they are.
It's just extraordinary. I've never seen anything like this, but they had to take it seriously, Brian, because they had protests around the world. They had U.S. troops on alert. They had a worldwide travel warning today because of the protests in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in a war zone where we have upwards of 100,000 men and women. So with all of that on the line and with all of the progress that they had hoped to make toward the Muslim world, the initiatives from the president to the State Department to everything that David Petraeus is trying to do in Afghanistan and before that in Iraq, they had to take it seriously. And the decision was made very early today from my conversations with people that the White House would not reach out, that the State Department would not reach out, that they would have the Pentagon reach out. And it went to Bob Gates, Robert Gates, the Secretary of Defense, because he could clearly call the imam and put it to him that men and women in uniform were in danger. And that was the key fact.
And that decision certainly lent this a different kind of weight. Let's go to Mike Taibbi in Lower Manhattan. Mike, again, just trying to sort this out. Is it possible, we had two prongs of this that weren't talking to each other. Is it possible a deal was cut in Florida involving a promise to move the controversial planned location of that Islamic center that is to contain a mosque without checking or getting the approval of the folks in New York?
Well, Brian, apparently, and I'm thinking back to that famous movie line, what we have here is a failure to communicate. From the New York end of this, there were no negotiations and there is no deal. That both from the owner of the building and more importantly from Imam Rauf, who's the imam behind the planned cultural center and mosque. He released a statement just briefly a short time ago saying, and this is a direct quote, "I'm glad that Pastor Jones has decided not to burn any Qurans. However, I've not spoken to Pastor Jones or with Imam Mujri," that's the Central Florida imam, "and I'm surprised by their statements. We are not going to toy with our religion, nor are we going to barter. We are here to extend our hands and to build peace and harmony." An absolute denial that there have been any conversations at all. But, as Kerry said, and has been pointed out, if the Qurans aren't burned, that's the central point of today's developments.
That's right. We'll keep returning on and dwelling on that point, at least, that the Saturday event will not happen, apparently, and as of now. This story will continue on into tomorrow. For tonight, our thanks to our correspondents covering our lead story, changing story tonight. Now to some movement in the case of those three American hikers who have been in a Tehran prison for more than a year. We've covered it on this broadcast today. The Iranian government said this Saturday one hiker will be freed in honor of the end of Ramadan. An Iranian diplomat earlier said it would be Sarah Shord, who, with her two male traveling companions, was accused of spying when they were arrested near the Iranian border. Now, back here in this country, Texas Governor Rick Perry has issued a disaster declaration for 40 separate counties in Texas battered by Tropical Storm Hermine. And this was a rare sight last night in the U.S. metropolitan area. 4 tornadoes in and around Dallas, Texas. All of them spawned by this same vicious storm system. Knocked down walls, tore off roofs, overturned trucks, mostly in low-lying industrial outskirts. Only minor injuries reported. Nasty conditions today for the teams fighting those wildfires around Boulder, Colorado. So far, the fire, fed by high winds, has consumed at least 169 homes, more than any other wildfire in the history of that state. Possibility of wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour have made it too dangerous to allow folks to go back home. And now to what brings us back here tonight to this city that has come to mean so much to us. It is hard to find anyone here in New Orleans tonight who isn't wearing some form of the Saints logo. Even a few local news anchors had game jerseys on this morning under their usual on-air blazers. The Saints are just one NFL team, it's true, but they mean the world to this town. Playing tonight in the Superdome, their first game as defending Super Bowl champions when they meet the Vikings tonight here on NBC. Our report on what the Saints have done to and for this city from Janet Shamlian, who's down near the Superdome. Janet, good evening.
Brian, good evening. If it is possible to close up shop in an American city, that is the feel here in New Orleans tonight. Just about everything has come to a standstill in anticipation of this game and this team that has really come to represent the city's own hard-fought recovery.
Even in a city known for great parties, the frenzy of this day in New Orleans was unprecedented.
That's the breakfast of champions right there.
That time-honored football tradition, tailgating, started at sunrise.
There were some people already here with the grill going at 5:30 this morning I got here. This is what New Orleans does.
How y'all doing today?
City Hall shut its doors and schools closed early, all blamed on a fast-spreading football fever. Tonight's game, the NFL season opener, puts New Orleans back on a national stage, and not for a storm or an oil spill or any other tragedy.
Everybody's excited. It's Saints Mania.
After a Super Bowl win that gave this city an emotional boost, now comes another fresh start in the Superdome, representing so much of what New Orleans has been through.
This is fantastic. This is incredible.
A lifelong Saints fan, Sal Sunseri lost his home to Katrina and watched his oyster business crumble after the oil spill, but never once considered parting with his season tickets.
It's about the happiness. It's about where we've come, you know, from that point to now. I think we're over the hump with the Katrina story.
For the love of black and gold, bragging rights belong to the Saints as they begin a new march towards Super Bowl dreams and another step in the city's recovery.
And talk about an economic shot in the arm. The hotels here are booked solid, and Saints merchandise stores that have them, if they have any left, have lines out the door. Brian?
Janet Shamlian in the thick of it tonight in New Orleans. Might just run into you in the crowd down there at the Superdome tonight. Janet, thanks. When our broadcast continues on this day of dramatic developments over those threats to burn the Quran, the inspiring story of one community where people of different faiths have reached out, come together to help each other. And later, the kids' photos that are making a difference by telling a whole new story of this city of New Orleans after Katrina.
Look at all this stuff for coffee.
Oh, there's tons. French presses, espresso tampers, filters. It can get really complicated. Not nearly as complicated as shipping it, though. I mean, shipping is a hassle.
Not with priority mail flat rate boxes from the Postal Service. If it fits, it ships anywhere in the country for a low flat rate.
That is easy. Best news I've heard all day. I'm so amped. I mean, not amped, excited. I mean, that's sort of amped. Really kind of in between.
Have you ever thought about decaf?
You think that'll help?
Yeah.
Priority mail flat rate box shipping starts at $4.95, only from the Postal Service. A simpler way to ship.
Your favorite food's fighting you? Fight back fast with Tums. Calcium-rich Tums goes to work in seconds. Nothing works faster.
As a manager, my team counts on me to stay focused, so I take One A Day Men's 50+ Advantage. It's the only complete multivitamin with ginkgo to support memory and concentration, plus vitamin D to help maintain healthy blood pressure. That's a hit. One A Day Men's.
Diabetes testing? It's all the same. Nothing changes.
Then try this. New and improved Freestyle Light blood glucose test strip.
Sure, but it's not gonna... Wow.
Yep, that's the patented Freestyle Zipwick design.
Did it just target the blood?
Yeah, drew it right in. The test starts fast. You need just 1/3 the blood of one touch.
That is different. So Freestyle Light test strips make testing...
Easy?
Easy.
Great. Call or click. We'll send you strips and a meter free.
Free is good.
Freestyle Light test strips. Call or click today.
At GE Capital, we're out there every day with clients like JetBlue, financing their fleet, sharing our expertise, and working with people who are changing the face of business in America. After 25 years in the aviation business, I kind of feel like if you're not having fun at what you do, then you've got the wrong job.
My landing was better than yours.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
Was not.
Yes, it was. What do you think? Take one of the big ones out? Nah.
We are back, and in light of so many of the stories we've been covering in the news lately, the fracas over the Muslim Community Center in New York, the fracas over the threatened burning of the Quran in Florida now subsided. Tonight we have a story about a different kind of community and a different kind of relationship. Our report tonight from NBC's Ron Mott in suburban Memphis.
Last night's call to prayer outside Memphis was answered by the Muslim faithful as usual. Shoes removed, rugs laid, all bowed east toward Mecca, singing Allah's praises. But what makes this year's Ramadan different is where they're worshiping, a Christian church called Heart Song, a sort of welcome to the neighborhood gift while a new mosque is built nearby.
You can see people actually throw coins in it.
Pastor Steve Stone instructed his members how to respond to naysayers.
If they ask you, why in the world are you doing that? Get a real puzzled look on your face and say, we're loving our neighbors.
Neighbors ever since the Memphis Islamic Center bought 31 acres in the heart of the Bible Belt. Unlike other parts of the country, there have been no signs of protests. And when these doors open in the next few weeks, Muslim leaders say they hope the folks down the street they now call their Christian brothers and sisters will feel at home here as much as those who practice Islam.
Hello, we're glad you're here.
It's a feeling churchgoers like Suzanne Knight wanted to share during the holiest month of the Islamic calendar.
I think I will grow personally in learning to know about their culture and respecting the fact that they embrace a faith, even if it's not the faith that I embrace.
You see people for people and not what they may believe.
Heart Song's Muslim guests say it was more than just a place to kneel in prayer.
We've broken down a lot of stereotypes, broken down a lot of questions that people had about each other's faith.
Thank you for showing the spirit of God's love.
With Ramadan ending, these Muslims thank their host, promising an even stronger relationship in the future.
Together as two faith-based communities, I think we can definitely live and hopefully show America and just an example of living together peacefully.
One nation, two faiths under God, and the same roof. Ron Mott, NBC News, Cordova, Tennessee.
And when we come back here tonight, why so many grandparents these days are being forced into a role from their past.
Are you suffering from frequent heartburn? Heartburn that keeps coming back? Then you're ready for new Zegrid OTC. Zegrid OTC is the first 24-hour treatment ever with 2 active ingredients, prescription strength medicine plus a protective ingredient that shields the medicine from stomach acid so it's effectively absorbed. Just 1 Zegrid OTC capsule a day can relieve your heartburn all day and all night. If you have frequent heartburn, try dual ingredient Zegrid OTC. Heartburn solved.
No oil has flowed into the Gulf for weeks, but it's just the beginning of our work. I'm Iris Cross. BP has taken full responsibility for the cleanup in the Gulf, and that includes keeping you informed. My job is to listen to the shrimpers and fishermen, hotel and restaurant workers, and find ways to help. That means working with communities. We have 19 centers in 4 states. We've made over 120,000 claims payments, more than $375 million. We've committed $20 billion to an independent claims fund to cover lost income until people impacted can get back to work. We'll keep looking for oil, cleaning it up if we find it, and restoring the Gulf Coast. I was born in New Orleans. My family still lives here. BP is going to be here until the oil is gone and the people and businesses are back to normal. until we make this right.
How do you plus up breakfast? Introducing Total Plus Omega-3 Honey Almond Flax Cereal. All the nutrition of Total, plus 10% daily value Omega-3 ALA. And a delicious Honey Almond Crunch. New Total Plus Omega-3.
All right, so this Tylenol 8-hour lasts 8 hours, but Aleve can last 12 hours. And Aleve was proven to work better on pain than Tylenol 8-hour. So why am I still thinking about this? How are you?
Good, how are you? Aleve, proven better on pain.
Why do we offer flu shots at Walgreens every day? Because we're big on sharing. Our pens, our snacks, everything. And one of the best ways to protect yourself and your coworkers is with a flu shot from Walgreens. With the most pharmacists certified to immunize and walk-ins welcome every day, we're making it easier for everyone to get their flu shot. Get yours at Walgreens and Take Care clinics today. Walgreens, there's a way to stay well.
New numbers are just out showing more children are being raised by their grandparents these days. Researchers at the Pew Center analyzed census data and found that almost 3 million American children were being raised by a grandparent in 2008. That's up 16% from back in 2000. Analysts said there are a lot of reasons for it, including single parents being financially overwhelmed in this economy, high divorce rates, and long military deployments. Two more trends in the news tonight. First, the eventual death of the paper version of the New York Times. It's been assumed it couldn't last forever in the web era, but it was shocking nonetheless to hear the publisher of the paper, Arthur Sulzberger Jr., admit to an audience in London, quote, "We will stop printing sometime in the future." And the folks at the Gallup organization are out with their list of the most generous nations on earth. The U.S. has fallen in terms of generosity. Behind Australia and New Zealand, Canada and Ireland, the U.S. is tied for 5th place now with Switzerland. Education Secretary Arne Duncan was at a Washington, D.C. high school today to announce this year's list of blue ribbon schools. They're being recognized for their efforts to raise achievement levels among disadvantaged and minority students. 300 schools in all were named. It's a big deal if you go to one of them. You can see the full list on our website tonight. That's nightly.msnbc.com. We also learned today U.S. fighter jets were nearly launched last month to shoot down an unmanned Navy drone that had gone astray in the airspace near the nation's capital. The admiral in charge of the Northern Command said he was in the operations center when controllers lost contact with the drone on radar and it flew into restricted airspace. Just as the fighter aircraft were about to launch, apparently the Navy managed to reprogram the drone and bring it back. On Wall Street today, stocks finished modestly higher on a very light trading day. The Dow finished up just over 28 points. When our broadcast continues tonight from New Orleans, making a difference by helping kids here capture the spirit of this city 5 years after a big bad storm.
One look can turn the everyday into romantic. An accidental touch can turn ordinary into something more. Moments can change anytime, just like that. And when they do, men with erectile dysfunction can be more confident in their ability to be ready with Cialis for daily use. Cialis for daily use is a clinically proven low-dose tablet you take every day, so you can be ready anytime the moment is right.
Tell your doctor about your medical condition and all medications, and ask if you're healthy enough for sexual activity.
Don't take Cialis if you take nitrates for chest pain, as this may cause an unsafe drop in blood pressure.
Don't drink alcohol in excess with Cialis. Side effects may include headache, upset stomach, delayed backache, or muscle ache. To avoid long-term injury, seek immediate medical help for an erection lasting more than 4 hours. If you have any sudden decrease or loss in hearing or vision, stop taking Cialis and call your doctor right away.
Ask your doctor if Cialis for daily use is right for you. For a 30-tablet free trial offer, go to Cialis.com.
Welcome to the world of Loveza, where nature meets science. If you have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or diabetes, you may also have very high triglycerides, too much fat in the blood. It's a serious medical condition. Loveza, along with diet, effectively lowers very high triglycerides in adults, but has not been shown to prevent heart attacks or strokes. Loveza starts with omega-3 fish oil that's then purified and concentrated. It's the only omega-3 medication that's FDA approved. You can't get it at a health food store.
Laveza isn't right for everyone. Tell your doctor if you're allergic to fish, have other medical conditions, and about any medications you're taking, especially those that may increase risk of bleeding. Blood tests are needed before and during treatment. In some, LDL or bad cholesterol may increase. Possible side effects include burping, infection, flu-like symptoms, upset stomach, and change in sense of taste.
Ask your doctor about Laveza, the prescription that starts in the sea.
How new is the new Edge with my Ford Touch? Well, you could never do this before. Hello. Or this. Or this. You definitely couldn't do this.
Play Kate's Mix.
Or this.
Temperature 72 degrees.
Say hello to the new Edge with my Ford Touch. Quite possibly the world's smartest crossover.
Things are happening in this city. Stuff's happening all the time. And I want to know about it. If my weekend's going to be washed out, how will I know? If there's a transit strike, how will I know? Now I know.
Here in New Orleans tonight, one of the most comprehensive exhibits of the photos taken during the Katrina disaster is now on display. A lot of them are those searing images that it's just impossible to forget. But instead of just displaying them on the wall, the people who took the photos are using them instead to teach some lessons. By doing so, they're making a difference in the process. From here in New Orleans, here is NBC's Kate Snow.
12-year-old Kim Kaiser got his first camera a couple of years ago, and outside Cafe Du Monde, he found just the kind of scene he likes to shoot.
It just feels good. I love jazz.
Kim is in search of the good in this city after living through so much bad. He lost his grandpa in the aftermath of Katrina.
What do you miss the most about him?
I miss the way that I used to run up to him and kneel on his knees and give me a hug.
All these pictures that you see here are well thought out, well composed.
Johnny Hansen organized a workshop for young people to coincide with the new display of Katrina photos at New Orleans' Ogden Museum. After a private viewing, the kids would have their turn.
We want you guys to go out today against the backdrop of where we were 5 years ago and tell us where we are now.
You framed it and... Yeah. Photojournalists coached the kids on how to capture just the right frame.
So what's your impression of this?
Lonely.
This is cool. Let's hang for a while.
20-year-old Caitlin Sullivan lost 2 friends to suicide after Katrina, but now she sees beauty in the distinctly New Orleans tradition of a musical funeral procession.